This is Atlanta, where tall buildings and bustling freeways enclose a city filled with opportunity, history, and a southern charm. Dubbed the music capital of the South, in its backyard you will find prominent universities, a poppin' nightlife, and a flourishing tech and film industry that rivals the likes of New York and LA. Atlanta's influence has always exceeded the city limits. Considered the epicenter of the civil rights movement, it was on these grounds where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. first led the nation towards freedom and justice. Around this time, an emerging culture began to overtake the nation as the sounds of gospel and soul penetrated the airwaves. A prosperous black middle and upper class thrived under the leadership of the city's first black mayor. The region continued its run throughout the late 80s and 90s as R&B and hip-hop began to take center stage. But with great progress comes great adversity. Atlanta, like other major cities, raised public housing projects that served as ground zero for the 80s crack epidemic. And in 1994, Atlanta was ranked the most dangerous city in the country. Despite the city's ensuing troubles, Atlanta continued to rise. The city was chosen to host the 1996 Olympics, deeming Atlanta a premier choice destination for big business and the land of opportunity for millions of new residents. This economic surge marked the best of times for many and the continuation of a downfall for others.
You know, starting in the 1980s, really, this was a place where lots of corporations decided to relocate here to Metro Atlanta. It was very much a time where I think the business leaders in particular were optimistic about the potential for Atlanta. We kept adding these big corporate companies. And of course, all that energy, I think, really led to the decision to pursue having the Olympics here in 1996.
If you could describe kind of the social and economic effect of the 1996 Olympics here in Atlanta, what would you say?
There was a lot of new investment, there was a lot to be proud of, and it really put us on a national stage and an international stage in a way that we weren't before.
My goal is to by hook or by crook, by any means necessary, to make well over $10 million in the next 10 years. You got me? Right? My grandparents were never millionaires, but they were rich. You know why? Because they owned the home we lived in. They owned the extra home on Fairlane. They rented out that home, and they both had jobs. My grandmother was educated and a nurse. My grandfather drove dump trucks and had trade skills, so he was never without money.
So the Olympics comes here to Atlanta. A lot of things change for Atlanta. Who benefited from the Olympics coming
Rich people. People who were rich, people who were economically powerful and politically connected benefited. Absolutely they did. Who definitely did not benefit were people who lived under federal government housing, meaning East Lake Meadows, different housing projects, because those projects closed. And when those projects closed, those people were sent out to places like Riverdale, Southeast, and things of that nature, and then MARTA lines were cut, which essentially left those people on economic islands of poverty. And you saw crime rate raise in places like Clayton County, because all of a sudden you have people that are out here that are poor, and now they don't have access to even get back in the city. So as beautiful as the Olympics was, as cool as Sparky was, and it was great to see Muhammad Ali in person, it has been an absolutely terrible experience in terms of jail sentencing that happened around nonviolent drug offenses, things that would have gotten you 5 years, got you 20 all of a sudden. Some brothers are still just coming home from that. It pushed poor people out of the city, and I never understood it because our city has been a Democratic enclave forever, and essentially they put their voter base out in Clayton and places like Riverdale, cut them off, and now they're trying to fight to win elections. So, but we got a lot of cool buildings and stuff that people can't live in, and that rich people do profit from.
While in recent years, Atlanta has experienced a boom in population and substantial economic growth, the city's high violent crime rate continues to detract from the quality of life most locals would hope for. 22.4% of Atlanta's residents live below the poverty line, which some would argue equates to the more than 1,084 violent crimes reported per 100,000 residents in 2016, nearly 3 times the national violent crime rate. Officials believe that at the heart of this violence are its gangs, with more than 50% of Atlanta's violent crimes reported as being gang-related in 2017. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation says almost 200 operate in the area today, more than double that versus 2013. The same forces that make gangs attractive to the West Coast and South Side Chicago youth are now also at play in the New South. West Side Atlanta. It's a Saturday morning, and while most people are working 9 to 5s, out shopping, or attending local events with family and friends, Bloody E is preparing to do what he does on a daily basis: hustle.
Just waking up. For how you start my day. First blunt of the day. Plays, calling. You know how that go. A normal day, I don't think I have normal days. You never know what it's gonna be like. You never know what you're walking out that door to.
What's the motivation behind it?
I hustle for my family. I got children I gotta feed. They depend on me. I got 5 children. Oh, I signed up for this shit. Big difference. Nobody will never understand it. I didn't do it for fame, no clout, you know. I don't do this cause I want to. I do it cause I got to. Like it's a difference in all of it. So me waking up knowing, okay, I'm making plays, you know, doing this and that and making a little money. It ain't never enough, but I gotta do that because people depend on me. I got children to feed. You know how that go. I'm a Jordan fan because, you know, when I was young, my people couldn't buy me joints. They couldn't afford these shoes. You know, and there's certain pair I get because I saw, you know, other kids with those same shoes, and I couldn't afford them. So now I buy the motherfuckers every time they come out. You know what I'm saying?
Oldest of 3 siblings, E was raised in the Simpson Road community by his grandparents. He was kicked out of multiple schools and has been in and out of jail since the age of 16. Yet, he does what he has to survive and acknowledges that this is the life he chose. When people think of gangs, they usually think of a movement that got its start during the early 70s in the streets of LA. But gangs are almost as old as America herself. In the movie Gangs of New York, director Martin Scorsese depicts a group of poor Irish and Italian immigrants fighting for control over a slum in New York City in the mid-1800s. Gangs expanded to the Midwest and cities like Chicago in the early 1900s, where they morphed into large criminal organizations with political influence and power. As gang culture spread to the West Coast in the 1930s, unlike Midwest and Northeast gangs that grew out of poverty, they would grow out of ethnic segregation as Mexican immigrants poured into West Coast cities in record numbers. As blacks began to move north during the Great Migration, they were met with violence from gangs of white youth, which they responded by forming their own gangs for self-protection. By the early 70s, black gangs in Los Angeles, known as Bloods and Crips, would form into territorial-based groups, creating the new blueprint for the culture that would spread across the entire country.
When you think about the reputation of the city of Atlanta, what comes to your mind, and what do you think comes to most people's mind when they think about Atlanta as a whole?
Well, when I think of Metro Atlanta as a whole, because Atlanta also includes the suburbs, I think it's a party city, it's a fun city, it's a great place to be, but also a subculture that a lot of people, they don't get a chance to interact with, but they know it exists.
How would you compare Atlanta to some of these, heavily congested gang areas in other cities?
If things don't change, we're about 6 years away, in my opinion, 6 to 10 years away from mimicking those locations. Because Atlanta's the place to be. I can party here all night. I can have a good time. Money is here to make. We got a lot of successful young black entrepreneurs here. It's a lot of victims here. You know what I'm saying? So, and then I can also hide in plain sight here.
I've been in Atlanta all my life. Started committing crimes at the age of 13. And eventually I joined the gang at the age of 15 in 1984. At the time, we were identified as neighborhood gangs or hybrid gangs, and we were having issues with the surrounding projects that I stayed around. And those things eventually went to another level because you had migrating gangs coming here from Chicago, LA, New York, Miami, Detroit, to capitalize off the crack money that was being made here. And they were literally running people out their neighborhoods. And so me and my homeboys, we weren't going for that. So we formed different alliances with surrounding neighborhoods, pretty much from the Adamsville area, to address that issue.
In the late 80s, early 90s, we all had community gangs, but we didn't call them gangs because our mentality of a gang was LA and Chicago and Detroit, and we never considered ourselves as being on that level. They were just more like cliques, like Young Gunner clique, Young Gangster clique, Shady Park, 2900, Lightning, The Runts, ABG, Anybody Get It. These groups started to merge and become more traditionalized. And they went from just having, this is my neighborhood that I represent, to we started representing more colors that became more Crip oriented and more blood oriented.
1:30 p.m. on a Monday afternoon. We're taking a ride with Detective Dennis, a 15-year veteran with Atlanta's gang unit, as he gives us a tour of one of Atlanta's most historic districts, now one of its most crime-ridden and gang-infested communities.
Where exactly are we? Like, what area is this?
Man, this is Old 4th Ward. This is 356 Boulevard, BP Station. I sit there all day. This was my epicenter. Anybody looking for me, they knew to find me there. When I worked patrol, I used to sit up on the roof, and that's how I knew everybody was stashing their dope and stuff like that.
This roof right here?
Right up there. They used to, when I used to come on at 7 in the morning, they used to stand outside this red grocery store over here, and that's where they used to sell dope. When I worked out here, we had little neighborhood cliques, what we call hybrid gangs. And that was just the neighborhood guys all banded together. They used to be, I think, 404 Mafioso or something like that. Then we started seeing Rolling 60s Crips, which is a California-based Crip gang. And this is now one of the Atlanta sets. When you see NH60 or neighborhood Rolling 60s, we actually have intelligence where we have the head of the Rolling 60s actually coming over here, basically blessing them in as one of their Atlanta-based sets.
What type of challenges do you think that the people of this community is facing right now?
You have a community that's in transition. So you have the people that's been here for years, decades, and then you have people that are moving in. And some of the culture that's been accepted here for years is no longer acceptable. I think a couple of weeks ago, we had 7 people shot over here on this same block. It kind of stunned a lot of people, but you might have an apartment that's low income right next to a house that's worth $400,000 or $500,000. So our interest is totally different. If I'm renting, I can up and move at the drop of a hat, but if I've invested into a property like this, you know, I'm not gonna be so quick and happy about somebody standing on my corner outside my house selling dope, doing whatever.
Hey partner, I go by the name of Rollo Fam Gone. Shit, I'm quite sure y'all know that already. So you know me, I'm cut from a different cloth. All niggas like me.
It like this west side, bro. Niggas grew up with down there, nothing over here. Like, we ain't really have shit over here, so it was wicked over here. Anything we wanted, we went and got on our own. Our parents didn't have shit to give us, so we couldn't ask them for shit, you feel me? Right. So anything we ever had, it was up to us to go get it, you feel me, man? I was 12 when I started doing hot shit, but when I got into the streets, being in the street, getting the drug, I was 13. And that what it was saying then, like, my dad had died, my mom died, I lost my sister, so I ain't had nothing but the street, you feel me? You don't know another nigga's circumstances. You don't know what he wake up to deal with. So you can't tell a nigga chill, little bro. Cause you ain't putting that paper in his pocket, but his family got to eat. So he ain't finna fucking chill today. We had a lot of had broken homes, so that's how we grew on to each other. Knowing each other from the block, knowing each other from the street, knowing they got down.
He ain't having a goddamn a brother at home. I ain't having a brother at home. So then my brother knowing he got my back when I got down do leave home. And that's how it was.
So it's like a family unit type shit.
It's family, period. The unit is family. You feel me? Niggas ain't friends no more. Like, nigga family. If you ain't, we ain't into that friend shit. Feel me? Friend danger. Like, you gonna have family, friend distant, bro. You feel me?
Right.
The rest of it, like, we family, but all that belong to each other when you have shit. Growing up in the street, knowing he got my back, knowing I got his back, they my brother. You feel me? They most definitely the money, bro. The money got down with a nigga into it for the make it better for the family. You feel me? When a nigga striving to have better, the better is the money a nigga trying to accumulate. You feel me? So when we get that money, we gonna do better with this shit, make it better for our people. Right. And that's what it is. That's what driving a lot of folks to the light.
I grew up in a GD neighborhood, and you know what I'm saying, as you grow older, you know what I'm saying, you witness things that's going on in the community. It kind of like bring you into the lifestyle because, you know what I'm saying, you might get into it with another neighborhood or you know what I'm saying, for nothing, and you got a whole beef going on because you from the neighborhood, so we just know everybody just kind of fall in line. The popularity of being in the game escalated, you know what I'm saying, over the last couple of years, especially in Atlanta. Me being from Memphis, growing up with the situation, when I moved down here, it wasn't as bad as it is today. Everybody clout chasing, everybody trying to get a name for themselves in the wrong way. They celebrating life on Instagram. So, you know what I'm saying, they only seeing the celebrating side of the lifestyle, but they not, you know what I'm saying, they not aware of what happens when you commit a crime, the punishment that you get for the crime, and what the fuck you gotta go through after you go through that judicial system. So, you know what I'm saying, a lot of motherfuckers, these motherfuckers go to jail and don't know what jail about. They get that motherfucking tray, be asking for their mama.
The kids nowadays are really attracted to this lifestyle, as we're talking about, especially kids in poverty, especially kids without money, without opportunities. Why do you think that they're so drawn to the lifestyle coming from a poverty standpoint?
A lot of them kids growing up in poverty is you know what I'm saying, they up and coming hustlers, so they look at the gang members, they be like, hey man, these motherfuckers got their shit going on and shit like that, they got their shit together, so of course they gonna gravitate to wanna be like them or something like them, so that attracts them because, you know what I'm saying, when I was growing up, the gang members had all the money and the bitches and, you know what I'm saying, the clothes, the jewelry, the cars and shit like that. I knew I wanted to be something like that, but you know, I was smart enough not to want to be exactly like them, but I want to be like, you know what I'm saying? I want to have my shit in the game. What it does is it brings you a network, you know what I'm saying? A network of people that you can communicate with, and they'll take you in and show you some things that you probably ain't getting at home. The people that ain't got no family, we they only family. Like they spend their Christmas with us, they spend their Thanksgiving with us, they do all the holidays, birthdays with us. So you know what I'm saying, that definitely gravitates and brings
that family bond, that love you can't get nowhere else.
Can't get it nowhere else.
Y'all got them on medication, ain't nothing wrong with these kids. Ain't nothing wrong with it. They're dealing with trauma.
In comparison to your LAs, your New York Cities, your Miamis, why is it that Atlanta is struggling so much when it comes to crime, youth violence, gang activity?
The youth, or the young people that I'm working with now, they are very reckless, and they don't value anything. You know, their concept of getting money by any means necessary has desensitized them to people altogether, and how they value human life is scary. You know, a lot of the people that are participants anyway have been impacted by trauma, traumatic experiences. Seeing people they love get shot, having people they love die, being abused, young girls being raped, just, you know, coming from households where there's a lot of neglect. And so with those unresolved issues being a part of their life, they're reaching to be a part of something or to connect to something that will give them a sense of being a part of something, a sense of being, a sense of love. And right now, that's what gangs are selling. They're selling love. Two-parent households where both parents are making 6 figures that are joining gangs.
Right.
but also to fit in and be a part of something that, you know, promotes power, because that's what gangs do.
If we invaded another country and we wanted different tribal factions to stop fighting, America would release their leaders, they would negotiate a peace terms, and those people would live peacefully next to one another. They did it with gangs in Jamaica, they've done it with gangs across the world. Why aren't we doing that here? We aren't doing it here for the same reason that you see gang members who start 501c3s in LA and they become effective, right? They become effective at negotiating peace, they become effective at getting violence to go down. Well, when that happens and there's not as much violence, the federal government doesn't feed as much money into local police and municipalities. When those funds don't come to local municipalities, the 501c3 funding shrink, and then violence peaks back up, then the police get their funding all of a sudden. So we're in a game, and we have to realize that. Gangs are growing because it's financially beneficial for municipalities to lock up gang members. Slavery is not illegal. The 13th Amendment makes a way for slavery. What easier way to allow slavery to happen than to just funnel boys into state prison? Now, instead of paying young men your age and my age to clean the sides of highways, a fair unionized rate, now you just see county and state workers doing it.
These niggas showed me love and, you know, was there, and when I had problems, they had the problems.
A lot of young people look at their condition as they don't have no hope or any resources or means of income.
After working in Detroit, Michigan, my transition to Atlanta, I see that the gang activity is more prevalent.
The school system has been a recruitment ground.
They all surrounded Bobby and they just stomped him till his heart burst. I was a single parent all my children's lives. What type of programs can the community come up with to help these children and parents?
Boys want to be a part of something, and everybody can't run and jump and throw a ball.
I ain't cheating, bitch, I'm really with the gang.
Once you become a superstar, you know, you want your friends around you, right, which is your gang. I grew up in that shot, busting with the hit. That's entertainment. That don't mean you gonna do the same thing that I did.
We the influencers. We create that hype that these kids are looking up to.
We advocate popping pills. We advocate mistreating women.
I've been a police officer for 15 years. I've never shot anybody. I hope I never have to. But at the same time, you gotta take into consideration, I don't know you.
They're gonna point at a bunch of little black boys who sing and dance and say, well, that's the problem. That's why gangs are growing. People are hungry, they're gonna eat. People are poor, they see shiny things, they're gonna try to take them.
That's all this shit is. Survival.